Tonight, you're going to put a plastic stick in your mouth for 2 minutes and not think about it at all. You'll do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and on every single day for the rest of your life without ever asking one question. Why does this object exist? Not the paste, the brush. You'd probably guess it's just a simple hygiene tool that someone invented and companies slowly improved over time. That's not even close to what actually happened, because that brush isn't cheap plastic. It's the anchor of a market worth almost $50 billion a year. And the story of how it got there involves a convict, an ad man who accidentally invented a chemical addiction, and a computer chip hidden in your bathroom that's been silently blocking you from saving money for over a decade. Let's start with the man who built the first one. In 1770, a London rag merchant named William Addis was locked inside Newgate prison for starting a riot. Newgate was filthy, overcrowded, the kind of place where prisoners cleaned their teeth, if they cleaned them at all, by rubbing rags dipped in soot, salt, and crushed brick dust across their gums. Addis hated it. One day, he was watching a guard sweep the floor with a broom made of stiff bristles, and something clicked. If bristles clustered together could move dirt off stone, they could move it off teeth too. He saved a bone from that night's dinner, cattle bone, picked clean of meat. He carved it by hand into a handle. Then he drilled a row of small holes into one end. He pulled bristles from the guard's broom, wild boar hair. He bundled them into tufts, tied the ends with thread, packed them into the holes, and sealed everything shut with glue made from animal fat. That was it. The first mass-producible toothbrush on Earth, built in a jail cell, out of dinner bones, and cleaning supplies. When Addis got out in 1771, he didn't forget the idea. He refined it, patented it in 1780, opened a workshop in Clerkenwell, London, and then something happened that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with his timing: sugar. Refined sugar was flooding into Britain from plantations in the West Indies, and for the first time in history, ordinary people could afford to eat sweet food constantly. Their teeth started rotting fast, and rotting teeth meant pain, and pain meant people would pay for anything that promised relief. Addis's prison invention landed in the exact decade Britain developed a national cavity crisis. By 1840, his company employed 60 people, producing 4 different toothbrush models. That company still exists today. You might recognize the name, Wisdom Toothbrushes. A criminal's dinner bone became a corporation that has now survived 250 years. And Addis wasn't even first, not technically. Bristle brushes existed in Tang Dynasty China over 1,000 years earlier, made from bamboo and cold climate hog hair. But nobody had turned it into an industry. Nobody had built a business model around it. Addis did, in a jail cell, by accident. But bone and bristle only explains why the toothbrush existed. It doesn't explain why you use it every single day without fail. That part of the story isn't about invention. It's about psychology. And it starts 150 years later, in America. In the early 1900s, almost nobody brushed their teeth. Fewer than 1 in 10 American households owned toothpaste at all. Dental rot was so widespread that when World War I broke out, U.S. military officials rejected recruits by the thousands for bad teeth. Men who were otherwise fit to fight were sent home because their mouths were falling apart. The Army officially called it a national security problem. A struggling toothpaste brand called Pepsodent hired an advertising man named Claude Hopkins to fix their sales. Hopkins didn't know anything about dentistry, so he did something strange. He sat down and read dental textbooks, page by page, hunting for a hook. Buried in the technical language, he found one sentence about something called mucin plaque, a thin, harmless, completely natural film that forms on every human tooth, brushed or not. Hopkins renamed it. He called it the film. His ads told people to run their tongue across their teeth right now and feel it. Feel that dirty film sitting there. And every single person who tried it felt something, because the film is always there. It's biology. Hopkins had found a psychological trigger that worked on literally every human being on Earth. Guaranteed. Every time. But the trigger alone wasn't enough to build a habit. So Hopkins added one more thing to the formula: peppermint oil and citric acid. These ingredients made your mouth tingle after brushing. That tingle had nothing to do with cleanliness. It did nothing chemically to fight decay, but your brain didn't know that. Your brain learned to associate the burn with clean and the absence of the burn with dirty. So if you skipped a day, your mouth didn't feel dirty because of bacteria. It felt dirty because it didn't tingle. And that feeling created something advertising had never manufactured at this scale before: a physical craving. Within 5 years, Pepsodent became the best-selling toothpaste on the planet. Within 10 years, American toothpaste ownership jumped from 7% to 65%. Hopkins didn't sell a hygiene product. He installed a habit loop directly into the brains of tens of millions of people. And he did it with mint oil and a made-up word. That exact habit loop is still running in your mouth tonight. Now fast forward again, because the object changed, but the business model underneath it never did. Today, electric toothbrush handles are barely where the money is. Teardown reports show a $200 smart toothbrush handle costs somewhere between $25 and $45 to actually manufacture. The real profit engine is the tiny brush head you snap on top. It costs less than $1 to produce. It sells for up to 10. That's a razor and blade model, the same one printer companies perfected decades ago. Sell the hardware cheap or even at a loss, and make the real money, forcing you to keep buying the consumable forever. But printer companies had a problem. Cheap third-party ink cartridges kept undercutting them. So did toothbrush companies, and they solved it the exact same way printer companies did. They put a microchip inside the brush head. Companies like Oral-B now embed RFID chips into their replacement heads. When you click a new head onto the handle scans it like a security checkpoint, verifying a cryptographic signature before it lets the motor run at full power. Snap on a cheaper, unauthorized head, and the handle knows. Your app loses live tracking. Pressure sensors stop reporting. Some models quietly change how the motor spins, just enough to make the off-brand head feel worse, so you go back to buying the branded one. You're not paying $10 for plastic and bristles. You're paying to unlock permission to use your own toothbrush at full capability. And at the very top of this market, the object has stopped pretending to be hygiene at all. A German company called Reinast sells a manual toothbrush machined from a single block of solid aerospace titanium. No motor, no battery, no moving parts. Price, $4,200, plus a subscription plan for replacement heads that can run over $1,000 across the life of the handle. In Japan, another brand sells a solar-powered brush with a titanium dioxide rod that releases electrons into your saliva, breaking down plaque with light instead of toothpaste. The $19 drugstore brush and the $4,000 titanium brush are functionally doing the same job. One of them is just better at making you feel something while it does it. And here's the part almost nobody thinks about while they're standing at the sink. Every time you flush a toilet with the lid up, it launches an invisible plume of contaminated water droplets nearly 6 feet into the air, and it lands on whatever's sitting on your counter, including your toothbrush. Studies have found fecal bacteria on the majority of toothbrushes stored in shared bathrooms. You've been engineered to crave the tingle. Nobody engineered you to close the lid first. So here's what's actually sitting in your bathroom right now. A shape first carved by a convict out of prison, dinner bones in 1770. So he could survive a filthy jail cell. A tingling sensation engineered by an ad man in the 1920s, specifically designed to make your brain crave a chemical burn-it mistakes for cleanliness. A hidden microchip, quietly checking your loyalty to a brand every single time you pick it up. And a price tag that can run anywhere from $2 to $4,000 for an object doing the exact same mechanical job it did in a London jail cell 2.5 centuries ago. You didn't start brushing every day because it's simply the responsible thing to do. You were engineered into it one layer at a time by a criminal, an advertiser, and a corporation across 250 years. And every one of those layers is still active, right now, sitting in a cup by your sink. And tonight, when you feel that mint burn and think clean, that's not your instinct talking. That's Claude Hopkins, still running his campaign a century after he died. And he's not going to stop just because you finally know his name.